I see planes in the sky. What? American aircraft. These are not Russian planes. These are American planes. One tank was hit directly in the engine. I gave it to a KGB. It's all American. I know the Russian plane. It's a black plane. I know, I was there. At that time, even Daesh hadn't attacked us. It was coordinated. The attack started in 5 minutes. We will defend the city from Daesh until help comes.
For over a year, I have ordered our military to take thousands of airstrikes against ISIL targets. I think it's time for Congress to vote to demonstrate that the American people are united and committed to this fight.
Save us! I appeal to the president. We have nothing. We're starving. What's the problem to set us free?
We are hitting ISIL harder than ever. Coalition aircraft, our fighters, bombers, and drones have been increasing the pace of airstrikes. As I said before, ISIL is dug in, including in urban areas, and they hide behind civilians, using defenseless men, women, and children as human shields. So even as we're relentless, we have to be smart, targeting ISIL surgically with precision.
Americans bomb incorrectly. They help ISIS. There are no terrorists, but they bomb us. They have already made many mistakes, although they have high-precision weapons.
The fact that he doesn't appear to have basic knowledge around Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, means that he's woefully unprepared to do this job.
I have known Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, since he was a college student in London. Before the revolution began in March 2011, Syria set a good example of harmonious relations among its many different ethnic and religious groups, including Arabs, Kurds, the Greeks, Armenians, and Assyrians who are Christians, the Jews, Sunnis, Alawites, and Shiites. The US demanded for the resignation of Assad after the protest was unattainable. The Carter Center, granted by us, won the Obama administration.
We saw that Daesh was growing in strength, and we thought Assad was ready. We thought, however, we could probably manage, that Assad might then negotiate.
Plan for supporting fundamental political Islamic terrorism for the American leadership wasn't used for the first time. Once the master of political chess game, Zbigniew Brzezinski, came up with a secret operation calling the support of Islamic fundamentalists in Afghanistan in the 80s a wonderful idea. Are the future of Syria and the US authority among countries of the Middle East at stake?
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan. And we were successful. The Soviets left Afghanistan, and then we said, great, goodbye, leaving these trained people who were fanatical.
They have a bunch of dishonest people. They've created ISIS. Hillary Clinton created ISIS with Obama. Created with Obama.
You're not fighting Syria anymore. You're fighting Syria, Russia, and Iran, all right? Donald Trump said on Tuesday that Hillary Clinton's plan for Syria would lead to World War III. Today, the main threat is terrorism. We are defending everyone. No matter who it is, we are defending the world. Well, I thought the approach of fighting Assad and ISIS simultaneously was madness and idiocy. They're fighting each other, and here we're fighting both of them. I think that a far bigger problem than Assad is ISIS. I've always felt that. Our position on the mountain Sada were attacked by the coalition aircraft. We had talks on the radio. They were conducted in English.
We are still gathering information at this time, but we have been able to confirm that earlier today, the United States struck what we believe to be an ISIL target. We halted the attack when we were informed by Russia that it was possible that we were striking Syrian regime military personnel and vehicles. We are investigating the incident. If we determine that we did indeed strike Syrian military personnel, that was not our intention.
Attacks mounted by jihad terrorists, however terrifying, do not compare with a threat emanating from Russia. Putin's aim is to foster the European Union's disintegration, and the best way to do so is to flood Europe with Syrian refugees.
Because we're accelerating the campaign, DoD is backing that up, and we need to back it up in our budget, with a total of $7.5 billion more in 2017, 50% more than in 2016.
It's amazing that Obama is increasing military spending in Europe fourfold, and the budget to fight against Daesh is only 50%. This indicates where Obama sees his priorities, not in the fight against terrorists, but in confrontation with Russia. This is a conclusion made after Kissinger's speech in the Gorchakov Fund.
I personally am convinced that he's going to fail, not because of people like me who would like him to fail, but because the ideas that guide him are inherently self-contradictory.
The Obama administration, I think, made some very calculated decisions about the use of force in Libya. It was very carefully thought through, and they knew exactly how far they were going to go, what they were going to do. They are looking at Syria now and see it's a completely different country, very different issues, and they are doing any number of completely different tools in terms of humanitarian, non-lethal assistance, helping with communications, working through a variety of things to do with refugees, and never taking any option off the table.
Have you bought now? How much does this food cost? Is this for 5 people? Yes. My neighbor died of hunger. I weighed 85 kilograms and now only the skin and bones. We have no food, nothing. I am 63 years old. I have money only for 7 days. Tell the main president to help us. Hillary Clinton, an American-trained terrorist, and help Israel. We have no money, and the clothes and the soup from the smoke. It's barely enough for firewood and bread. I get up from hunger at 3 o'clock, but there is nothing to eat. Look at my hands. They're thin. The clothes are big, and so at all. We need peace. The life is terrible for 2 years. The siege will kill us sooner or later. God help us. Take the Daesh away from here. All supplies are long over. We only eat beans and porridge. There is nothing more. We come and take a can of water here once a week. Sometimes it happens every 10 days. We constantly want to drink water. During the siege, try to surround the enemy, deprive him of water, electricity, and food and ammunition, so that in the future, to step out of the city and break the wheel to resist those who defend it. The forces behind ISIS knew perfectly well where the city water supply came from. They have everything, including satellites. Americans struck at our troops, defending districts of the water supply, calling it a mistake. During the offensive, ISIS seized the water treatment facilities in the Aish area. But we found a way to survive. Now we take the water directly from the river Euphrates, using all the forces to survive. There is no fuel for generators, there is no electricity for 2 years, and the water is dirty. Because of this, children are constantly ill. There is no bread. America killed our children, our people. Over the weekend, the United States accidentally bombed Syrian government troops. The agreement came by salvaged if all sides unite. For now, around a simple and undeniably important goal: stop the killing. In such cases, they say every time that it was a mistake, but in fact they helped them, including weapons. We lose a lot of fighters, especially in the area of the cemetery. We are not afraid to be here and keep the defense. This is our inner faith, and although there is fear inside, but we do not show it. Our duty is to protect peaceful areas, and we will protect them. And if necessary, we will worthy to die and become martyrs. We immediately found out that they were friendly coalition troops. They did not obey the ceasefire regime, but struck. They struck with cluster ammunition across a mountain chain Sadr. The reason is that without the coalition forces, it was impossible to take Sadr. The fighters used suicide bombers more than 10 times, but our troops had good positions there. The troops successfully defended. They could not capture Sadr without the coalition aviation. The position of Sadr is a position from which can take the airport. You can fire at the airport from it. Now our troops are in the foothill of Sadr and are still holding on. In fact, this is the key height for seizing the airport. The airport of Deir Ez Zor was international before the war. As any object of this kind, it is strategically military. After all roads were cut to Hasaka, Raqqa, Palmyra, the only way of life for military and civilians was the airport. Airplanes with humanitarian aid and military transporters landed on its territory. There is a military airfield on its territory, where the unit of the Syrian Air Forces was based. Our planes took off and inflicted airstrikes on the positions of terrorists directly from it. So their goal was to take it. ISIS tried to take it from the very beginning of the siege, but still it's useless. They managed to reach his fence several times, but thanks to the endurance of the defenders, the terrorists were thrown back. Nobody could take it by suicide bombers or rockets. The defenders have still held it.
ممتازة هي بدك على اليمين. يا محمد فين
Daesh shelled the hospital from rockets and tanks. Then the advanced suicide bombers broke with screams and shooting straight here. They immediately executed wounded soldiers. The Republican Guard and the military came to help. During the storming of the building, they took the wounded from the hospitals through the windows of the second floor. Terrorist suicide bombers were able to throw grenades and some themselves undermined. Unfortunately, several soldiers died. We continue to work, but the front line is only a few hundred meters from us. The person who gets hurt here, he often dreams of dying. Many people think that it's better to die from the bombing than to wait for the doctor's help in the overcrowded hospitals. It was ordinary Friday, nothing but a trouble. We were on the roof of a house and a shell got there. My sister, neighbor, and I were injured. I was injured in the face, stomach, and legs.
Здравствуй, дорогой. Как себя чувствуешь сейчас? Больно. Больно? Ты в рубашке родился. Ты знаешь, что у тебя осколок еще один в сердце шел? Телефон задержал.
We received information about the concentration of the enemy on my front line, and tonight we're preparing to repel the attack from the north. We set up observers, and despite the fact that we are sustaining losses of the best fighters, we will repel these attacks and defend the city. At the moment, 4 of my assault groups are conducting an offensive on the position of fighters in the cemetery with the support of aviation. The garrison is divided into 2 parts. The third part of the garrison is completely isolated. The helicopter cannot sit down. There is no opportunity to help wounded. After the bombardment by the Americans from the south captured by Daesh, the airfield shot through. We need help to save the fighters who are blocked at the airfield. Fighters of the Daesh cut the road to Deir Ez Zor, turned off the light and water, so the city is in siege for more than 2 years. Now the military and the city residents receive the help only by air. Food, medicine, and ammunition are dropped from helicopters and airplanes. Daesh shoots these parcels still in the air. Fortunately, something managed to collect. The children, sometimes on a fire, pick rice seeds and pour oil for their families. Each parcel contains 10 kilograms of rice, 5 kilograms of beans, and a can of olive oil. It's food for each family in Deir Ez Zor for a month. Especially hard is for those who have many children. People are trying to survive, but there are no trees. After the winter, the whole families of the house warmed up near the fire. The children uproot the hemp so as not to freeze. People collect everything in the streets you can find. Sometimes they find breadcrumbs as well. ISIS doesn't let anyone go out of the city. They shoot at the exit. The last time they shot the whole family. How did this happen? I was wounded by rocket attacks. How old are you? 14. I have a sick child and I cannot procure even the medicine for him. This is a problem for Deir Ez Zor. Allah is with us. He helps us to go ahead. We will cleanse this land of infidels and atheists. Allah will do away with them in all countries where we come. The slave trade in ISIS is put on them. A clear sales system, well-established logistics and pricing. The marking is by numbers for identification of a living product. It's a significant part of the income along with oil smuggling. Unredeemed people are subject to destruction. Christians and Yazidi women have the heavy fate in the hands of terrorists. Mass rape and physical torture became their fate. The sex slave of ISIS is a real horror of what's happening in the Middle East. The ISIS propaganda is betting on children educating them in the spirit of killing infidels, including Muslims. Many children use terrorists as live bombs. America, you have drowned and there is no savior. And you have become a prey for the soldiers of the caliphate in every part of the earth. You are bankrupt and the signs of your demise are evident to every eye. There is no more evidence than the fact that you have been wronged by an idiot who does not know what Syria or Iraq or Islam is. I'm as the representative of the Women's Council of Deir Ez Zor organized the mothers and wives of soldiers who visit their relatives in the forefront. Everyone who tries to get out of this town is killed. We understand what the fate will wait for us if Daesh will come to the city. We need help. ISIS kills our brothers, our sons. If they appear here, I will take up arms. We will protect our children, daughters. Not only me, but everyone around will take up arms and shoot the Daesh. All the religions of the world are inside Syria. Deir Ez Zor not only keeps, but also continues to lead, hoping for help and salvation. In the bombed Al-Quds University, the university continues to go on. The students understand what can happen if the city finds itself in the hands of terrorists. We just simply can't get a school or work. We're constantly afraid of bombing. We need safety. Just not to be afraid of simply going down a street and be caught in shelling. I'm a young girl. I want to walk freely in the street and be sure nobody will lay a finger on me. We don't understand ourselves where the snipers come from. Sometimes they are here, sometimes not. Some people say these are stray bullets, but it looks as if a sniper specifically shoots the road from Assad Hospital to university where we study, so we can't get to classes or beg help. There used to be more than 3,500 students in the university before the war. Now the number is much lower. Once just during the exam, the shell hit here. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. 2 helicopters under Daesh shelling are trying to keep in touch with town Kamishli on border with Turkey. This is the only way medicine and ammunition can be taken to Deir Ez Zor. This is the only way to survive for the old people, women, and children. Daesh is eager to occupy the town with 100,000 citizens. They want to seize gas, oil, and water from the Euphrates River. Deir Ez Zor is a crossroads of the Great Silk Road. It's a strategic place, the starting point of the attack on Damascus. If Daesh occupy the town, they will kill all its citizens. We are afraid of the coming day. Daesh are moving closer and closer, and they're killing us. I haven't seen my son for 20 days. They were lost when trying to get out of town. Deir Ez Zor is daily attacked by rockets. It's terrifying to live here. The road must be open so that we could eat and drink. The airports must be guarded so that the plane with the humanitarian assistance from Kamishli and Hasaka could land.
My government will continue to work. It will play a leading role in the campaign against Daesh and to support international efforts to bring peace to Syria.
My problem isn't Daesh, it's the courts. Terrorism must be destroyed everywhere. For more than 30 years, we have called for the development of international alliance against terrorism. We are all aware that Turkey supplies Jabhat al-Nusra with weapons, money, volunteers, and it does nothing without coordinating with the United States and other Western countries. When the terrorists of the Daesh faction tried to wipe the cities of Damascus and Baghdad from the face of the earth, Iran responded to the call of its oppressed neighbors of Iraq and Syria. If it were not for Iran's participation, the Daesh should have practically reached its barbaric goals, and today, instead of fighting a group, albeit strong, we would have already come across an enemy in the form of a whole terrorist state. President Obama has mentioned one of the threats, ISIS, and who helped to arm people fighting Assad, who created favorable political and media climate, who pushed the supply of weapons.
America a great country in its political system. Now it's just an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery being the essence of getting the nominations for president or the elected president. And the same thing applies to governors and U.S. senators and Congress members. So now we've just seen a complete subversion of our political system as a payoff to major contributors who want and expect and sometimes get favors for themselves after the election's over.
These are the words of Carter, Nobel Prize laureate, the initiator of the Camp David Accords in 1978, which led to peace between Egypt and Israel, to the person very much respected in Islamic world. Ex-U.S. presidential advisor Jimmy Carter, Madeleine Albright, and Hillary Clinton, together with her husband Bill, were all promoted of American political, all in by Pamela Churchill Harriman, an ex-wife of a son of Sir Winston Churchill, one of the specialists in Middle East politics, and the widow of another well-known tycoon, Averell Harriman. It was she who rallied democratic political establishment, who welcomed President Gorbachev and Yeltsin, and who brought up President Barack Obama. Today's political view of Jimmy Carter, Henry Kissinger, and their subordinates, Mitchell Albright and Hillary Clinton, and co, are quite opposite of those of Donald Trump. The world has not ended with the election of Donald Trump, the new U.S. president, but it will develop in a slightly different way. These words sound optimistic for besieged citizens of Deir Ez Zor, because there is some hope that the other way means not like a deed of Hamas administration, dragging them to certain doom. Trump will need 6 months to meet the world leaders and understand the existing problems. In spring 2017, the U.S. president will be expeditiously engaged into international politics. I don't trust Kissinger much. Thus, we hope that the world leaders will make arrangements and create coalition against terrorism to solve the problem, caused each day by the people of Syria, which mean blood and destruction. I think going to Iraq was one of the great mistakes in the history of our country. I think getting out of it, I think we got out of it wrong. Then lots of bad things happened, including the information of ISIS. I think going in was a terrible, terrible mistake. Syria, we have to solve that problem because we are going to just keep fighting forever. I have a different view of Syria than everybody else. I have some very strong ideas on Syria. I think what's happened is a horrible, horrible thing. To look at the deaths, and I'm not just taking deaths on our side, which are horrible, but the deaths, I mean, you look at the cities, I thought whether totally the rubble, massive areas, and they say 2 people were injured No, thousands of people have died. Okay, I think it's a shame. And ideally we can do something with Syria. I spoke to Putin. As you know, he called me essentially. While Erdogan is fighting against the Kurds, Europe is trying to manage all the refugees from the east. The United States is only enlarging military obstacles in Europe, pointing to the so-called Russian aggression. Isn't it high time to support Russia in destroying Daesh terrorists and establish peace in the east and break the long-term siege of the heroic town of Deir Ez Zor? After the bright victories of the Syrian army in Aleppo, in Damascus, and near Hama, the enemies of Syria and the American leadership pushed Trump to strike at our air base, providing him with false information. This is all bald-faced lie. On occasion to strike, they struck at our base, and ISIS made a target again near Palmyra. President Trump and President Putin agree on Syria's sufferings being too long and that all the sides should do their best to stop violence. Nobody thinks about us. Nobody talks. Nobody suggests anything as though we don't exist. There ain't no man here, only women, and we are starving. We need a solution. For the last 3 months, all rice supplies were eaten. Humanitarian assistance isn't enough. Politicians of the whole world, I'm addressing you. At least help our children. If you're not willing to help adults, help our children who are here without any help. We adults will do something ourselves. History knows many different blockades of cities. The siege of ancient Troy lasted 10 years, but Troy fell. The castle of Carthage months ago was taken, despite the desperate resistance of its defenders. During the Second World War, the siege of Leningrad lasted a long time and claimed the lives of more than 1 million people, many of whom were children, but the city survived. The siege of Deir Ez Zor lasted more than 1,000 days.